my name's Ed Thompson from Matillion. In this video we're going to start building our first job with Matillion ETL for Snowflake. In the previous video we showed you how to start the product and get it set up in your AWS environment and get connected to Snowflake. So let's get started with how we build our first Snowflake ETL job. First join the project. If the sample jobs have been enabled, we'll have this dim airport setup and dim airports. Just to quickly get some data into our Snowflake environment to work with, I'm just going to right click and revalidate this job. This will create the artifact on the Snowflake environment to allow this orchestration job to run. So that I've got a working environment, I'll now right click and run that job in Snowflake. This will create me some tables to work with later on. Matillion allows you to create two types of job, orchestration job and transformation jobs. The orchestration jobs handle the overall ETL process and flow from end to end, and can be thought of like a visual script of all of your ETL processes, the order of events at which they happen. This is an orchestration job that we're looking at now that creates some tables, loads some data, and then runs a transformation. Transformation is the other kind of job in Matillion. Transformation jobs allow you to transform your source data in whatever shape or form that it comes into analytic ready target data. Because we need some data to work with, I'm going to start by loading some data, and that's usually done in an orchestration job. So if I right click and do add orchestration job, we'll call this load flights data. This gives me a blank canvas. Down on the left hand side here are all the components that we build our jobs from. There's a whole load of different components available, everything from scripting in Bash and Python, transaction control, iterators, flow control, and some specific components for Snowflake. Matillion also has lots of loading and unloading components. Lots of different systems are supported, everything from YouTube to SAP to Facebook, various on-premise and cloud databases, Excel and Google spreadsheets, and a number of CRM and marketing systems. Generic connectors, such as the database query connector, will allow you to connect to a whole host of different JDBC databases, everything from SQL Server to DB2 to MySQL, Oracle, etc. The simplest way to get data into your Snowflake environment is to load it from S3. Before you can do that, you need to create a table. So I'm going to start with a create table component. Add that to my canvas and connect it up to my start component. My new table is going to be called raw flights, because this is my raw data. I can now configure the columns for my table. For brevity, I've already got these configured. So I'm going to click the text mode and paste them in. If I OK that, I'm now ready to go ahead and create that table. I can create it right away by right-clicking on it and doing Run Component. That will create my table. Now I need to load some data from S3. For that, I'll use the S3 load component. Connect that up in the same way. This component I can choose from an S3 bucket. Here we have some Matillion flights data. I'm just going to choose that bucket prefix. I'm going to load all data, and I'm going to choose to load that into my raw flights table that I just created. I need to set a couple of other settings here. First of all, my data has headers, so I'm going to skip one row of headers. And also, my data has some nulls in. These nulls are represented by NAs, so I'm setting my nulls parameter to NA. If I OK that, I'm now ready to load my data. However, one really neat feature of Snowflake is the ability to scale up and down the data warehouse dynamically. For that, we use the alter warehouse component. And I'm going to add an alter warehouse component before and after my loading. Before I load the data, I'm going to make the warehouse larger. So we'll call this a large warehouse. And over here, I'm going to shrink the warehouse. To enlarge the warehouse, we need to set the command set, and then the property warehouse size large. To shrink down my warehouse, I once again use the command set and set the warehouse size to small. This will enlarge, load my data, and shrink my data warehouse. Let's run my job now. To run my job, do right-click, Run Job. When my job is running, you can see the job is running in the task panel. If you expand the task, you can see the stage that it's on. At the moment, it's enlarged the data warehouse, and it's created the table, and it's just doing the S3 load. This will take a couple of seconds. My data warehouse is now loaded. We can see that the load flights data component, the S3 load, has loaded 123 million rows of data. And the data warehouse has been shrunk back down. Next, let's transform our flights data. If I right-click on default and add transformation data, we can create a new job called transform flights data. Transform flights data. If we then go to the environment panel, we should be able to see the tables that we've just created. The ones that we want are Matillion staging airports and raw flights. Drag and drop those onto the canvas. Let's go and take a quick look at our data. First, our flights data. If we click on the sample tab and click refresh, we can see we're working with 123 million rows of data. And if we sample the data, we can see what it actually looks like. We've got data going back to 1989. On the airports tab, this staging data has come from a JSON dataset. The way that Snowflake loads JSON datasets is it takes the whole JSON file and loads it into a variant column. We know we've got 3,300 rows and the data is currently just JSON. Let's work with the flights data first. First of all, the flights data wants to be filtered. We don't need to go back that many years. So if we start with a filter, I can drop that on next to my table input and connect it up. My filter condition is very simple. We can just go year is greater than or equal to 2000 to give me everything since the year 2000. If I OK that, I can now go through and look at the row count. I've now got 59 million rows, and we can look at the data itself. For the JSON data, we have a new component called Flattened Variant. The Flattened Variant component will allow us to take any complex data structure and turn it into a flat, relational, two-dimensional structure. This is very powerful when dealing with unstructured data sets such as JSON. For the flattened variant, we need to provide a column mapping, and for this particular example, it's a simple column mapping, which again I'll add in text mode. This takes the airport data column and extracts these properties from it. We can go straight away and sample that data to ensure that our flattened variant has done as expected. And if we look at the metadata tab, we can see our data types are set as we want them. Now we can join our data flows, add a join component, and connect the two flows into that component. The join component is set up like this. We have a main table that comes from my filter, and we'll call that flights. We'll then have a join that comes from my flattened variant. We're going to use this twice, and we'll call one origin for our origin airport, and then we'll use the same list for our destination airports. Finally, we need to set up our join expressions. In the join expression editor, you can see we've brought in all of the functions that are available in Snowflake. Math functions, string functions, window functions, etc. In this particular example, we're doing a very simple join. All the fields available in the join are on the left-hand side, and we're simply going to take the flight's origin and join it on to the origin IATA. And then for the destination, we're going to take the flight's destination and join that on to the destination IATA. Let's OK that. Finally, we need to choose the output columns from the join. I'm just going to choose all of them. I go ahead and sample that data set now. We can see the data. If we scroll over to the right-hand side, we can see we've correctly joined on an origin airport and a destination airport and all of that detail. Matillion has a full set of transformation components. Components for reading data in, components for joining that data, and a whole load of components for transforming. Simple operations such as aggregates and calculations across the line, and more sophisticated operations such as detect changes and window functions like rank and lead lag. To finish off, we can write our data out. Various operations such as the rewrite table, which takes the current data flow, and the table output, which will write to an existing table. The table update component will allow you to merge data into an existing table. In this simple example, I'll just use the rewrite table component, and we'll just create a table here called flight output. This would be our analytic ready data. This would be the data that might be used by a system such as Tableau or Looker for a deep dive analysis on that data inside of Snowflake. Once that job's complete, I can right click and run that job, and that will transform the data from the source to the target on the Snowflake database engine. First, my job will be revalidated, and then the actual execution of that job will take place. There we have 59 million rows transformed. As a final step, I can go back to the orchestration job that I created, and I can add in my transformation after the data has been loaded. This connects together the whole process, and this means that my job can be scheduled and run in its entirety. I can create a note on my job to tell everybody what my job is doing. Okay, so we've got our first transformation and orchestration job up and running inside Matillion ETL for Snowflake. From here we can go on and build all kinds of ETL processes that are going to be specific to your needs. Keep an eye out for some of the other videos that will help you with specific areas and specific components. In the meantime, if you need more information, please visit matillion.com, and you can always get Matillion from the AWS Marketplace. Thank you very much.